You've had the opportunity to see plenty of examples of people working with offenders trying to help them get into employment. What sort of success can really be achieved? What are some examples of the sorts of effective approaches that you've seen in action?
Well, you know, there are hundreds of employees that employ ex-offenders. And so to stick labels on who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, what makes it successful is when they allow them to work. That's the first thing, they give them a job. But the most successful ones is when they use the ex-offender to their full capacity, instead of just saying, oh, you're an ex-offender, so therefore you can be the sweeper. No, it's not about that. It's when it looks at the individual and says, you've got these talents, now we can hone these talents, train these talents so you can reach your full potential. That is success. And there are quite a few companies now realising that you've got an 85,000 people workforce that are not being used to their full capacity. And as I say, we've got people in prison who studied Open University, like myself, and they are reaching their full potential. And then the companies that employ them are really sort of pleased that, hold up a minute, we've got something special here. Now, you know, if I'd have said to the Governor of Parkhurst 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that I'd be advising the Prime Minister, previous Prime Minister, sitting on all the think tanks and getting an OBE, he would have took me over the hospital wing and I would have been on medication. But I'm actually doing that. And Unlock has been a very successful organisation. If you go downstairs, for instance, half of my staff are reformed offenders. One of them has got a master's degree in law, but cannot work as a solicitor. And this is where the sad thing is these barriers that employers put up, where if you really want people to come off the streets and think, yeah, all right, I don't want to work behind McDonald's bar. Some do, but if you think, I actually want to manage a shop, or I actually want to go into design, art and design, of the promotions for that, they must be allowed to reach their full potential. And that is a successful employer. And when you go to these projects where they've actually used ex-offenders, and the ones that use ex-offenders, funny enough, that are used successful, are the ones that don't even mention their ex-offenders. They're just employees that have done well, or an employee from a disadvantaged background that has done well. They don't hang the tag of ex-offender or reformed offender on them. They just look at them purely as, what have you got that I want to buy? You've got a good skill in promotion, you've got a good sales skill, you've got a good managerial skill, you know, and I always think of the drug dealer I talked to in Rochester when I said he had 30 odd convictions, and I said to him, you're not very good at this, you ever thought of trying something else, you know? And it was for selling cannabis. And I said to him, when you get cannabis, do you test it to make sure it's good and it's not a mix? He said, yeah. I said, quality control. I said, when you're going to sell it, do you look what area you're going to get the highest profit? He said, yeah. I said, market research. I said, and when you've got your cannabis and you're looking about who you're going to lay it on to sell for you, I said, you pick the right guys. He said, yeah. I said, distribution, networking. I said, you've got all the skills of a manager, you're just selling the wrong product. And this is what criminality is about. These people got skills that you've got to say, okay, you've got these skills, now we're going to turn these negative skills into positive skills, and you're going to sell the right product, and you'll be successful in business. And the person that employs that person and looks beyond that, just as I've shown you how to look beyond it, now you've got a sales manager there, given the right skills of the job, product training, you've now got a skilled manager who can do that job for you. So it's turning that negative skill into, and that is what a good employer does.
What are the common factors? What are the things that you really would look out for that's going to make something successful?
Well, it's about belief in oneself, and it's about saying that I will be allowed to achieve my full potential, that these social exclusions and these discriminations, you know, can be removed. And this is a government thing, this is what government needs to do, because we need positive role models in our world. In other words, we need people from our own background. I always say my people need positive role models. And it was really funny because, you know, when we started doing the television stuff and we started going on, and all of a sudden they see this guy who's come from an Irish family of 8 kids, grew up in King's Cross, full of prostitution, drugs and everything, went bad, robbed banks, and, you know, served 13 years out of 20, which I did do, you know, in maximum security. And everyone's going, he's a write-off, you know, this guy's going to go out and rob banks. And it's quite funny now because I go into them prisons and the prison officers say, hello Bobby, you know, we've got this problem now, and I'm sitting next to judges in public inquiries and advising them, you know, and it can change. But what you've got to give to people is the opportunity to change and the belief that they can change. And this is why when we have positive role models. When I got the OBE and it was all over the newspapers because first ex-offender really to get it, that sent a clear message. It made me feel very proud that I got that far, but it also made me feel very humbled that it had been recognised, because I didn't expect it to be recognised, and my people don't expect their achievements to be recognised because we're always put down. And so when it was recognised, that sent a clear message out to my people that you can actually leave this behind. It's not someone sitting there with a book saying, well, if you do this and this, you can get a job. No, the guy's actually done it. So therefore, if he's done it, we can do it. And this is why, if you like, not only me, but people in positions like me, reformed offenders who are out there and have been successful, we need to come forward to assist the government in saying, you can achieve this because we've achieved it. And so it's about giving our people belief in themselves. No political will can do that, no training can do that. They've got to see that by example. So that OBE basically said society is willing to forgive you, is willing to invest in you, if you're willing to invest in yourself and show us that you can do it. Because why should we trust you? Your track record says we shouldn't, but if you're willing to work hard to get to this level, we'll honour you with that, and we'll acknowledge that. And so the more people like us achieve, and I'm telling you this now, I'm not stopping an OBE. I'm going to go right to the top, and my people are coming with me because they're going to work hard and they're going to say, we can do this. And it's the same as when they go for employment and they see that manager's job or that director's job, they're going to say, I can do that because a reformed offender has done it. And if there isn't a reformed offender there, my word to every reformed offender will be, you be the one that is there so the others know they can travel that path. It is that important that we believe in our own self. But having said that, what we must have, and what politicians can do, is give us the level playing field to reach our full potential.
So we've seen these specific examples of the sorts of things that can work. What's really needed for that to be able to take place all over the place, to become something that becomes second nature rather than just pilot projects?
Well, really what you need is political will. You need politicians to be brave. And I always said a good politician is one who represents the interest of the country and the interest of society, not his own interest or the interest of his party. And for years and years, people have either been their own interest or the interest of the party and not really what's best for society. And I think we need strong politicians. We've seen it with Clark and a few others that have come forward and said what people don't want to hear. And that is what a politician should be. Someone who tells you what you don't want to hear, but what is best for society. And I think what needs to change is, one, we need to look at the things that stop our people from gaining employment. We need proper training, and I'm not talking about all the academic training in the world. A lot of our kids are not academics, don't want to be academics. They quite happily be bricklayers, plumbers, electricians, or working in, now we're in the 21st century, we should be training them in renewable energies, stuff like that, all right? So we should be training them for the 21st century, not training them for something back in Oliver Twist time. So it needs to be, look at the training, what jobs are out there. Instead of importing labour from abroad, we need to be training our next generation for jobs for the future. We need to give them hope that there is a future, because basically, when I talk to kids in the street, they say, well, hold up a minute, all those politicians and people like you, they're talking about my generation, me as well, I'm including myself in this, you all had your education free, now we've got a 50 grand debt, so basically you've robbed us of our future. And I feel very humbled by that, and you know something, I actually think they're right, and I'll say to them, sorry. So now I think we've got to look at, we have robbed them of a future, because we all wanted it back in the 60s and the 70s, and there was the pot emptied because of our spendthrift attitude. So I think now we've got to invest in our kids. Law can't be two-tiered. Law must be equal in all. Employment cannot be for those that are privileged. It must be equal to your ability, no matter where you come from. And we have got kids very rarely in Cambridge and Oxford, yeah? And it must never always be about academia, right? Everyone must have a venue or a road that they can go down to achieve the same as the guy who's got the academia in a trade. And that is where they're getting it wrong. And that's the bottom line. They phase themselves out because they see no future. I want to give our kids a future. Let's get our own house in order. Let's get our kids off the streets, into purposeful activity, into training. Let's invest in the future, because if we don't, we're going to be the victims of the future. And that is really important. These kids are our future. Don't demonise them, empower them. And that's where I'm at. And that is what Unlock is about. And that is about the level playing field. It's about politicians stop catering to look tough. If you want to be tough, deal with the causes of crime, not just the effects of crime.